Okay, welcome to the channel. I'm Randy Broussard, your host. I have a very special treat for our viewers today. Podcast concerning the JFK assassination. Thought we'd scan the globe a little bit into the wonders of modern technology. We're going clear across the pond to Scotland, and very honored to have guest Mr. Scott Reid, who's been researching the JFK assassination many years, maybe over 40 years. You can correct me if I'm wrong. He's published many articles on the Dealey Plaza UK Echo, visited many of the sites pertaining to the assassination, as long as been an online presenter, has published articles in various respective JFK websites. Uh, Previously contributor the Kurt Newton incident. He's the author of the article Oswald, the shot at General Walker, redressing the balance, where he discusses one of the prime suspects and only suspect in the General Walker shooting, which I had no idea, has been falsely attributed to Lee Harvey Oswald, which we'll be focusing on today. And Scott, thank you so much. I appreciate your talking
Yeah,
to me today.
pleasure. Pleasure to be here. And you're right, it is about 40 years. Yep, that'd be about right.
Right. How did you, oh,
Check, check.
I always start off by asking our guest, how did you get started? How did you get interested, I know, in the JFK assassination? I know you've been researching it all these years. You've read a lot. You've probably watched a lot of videos, including, I think, the Men Who Killed Kennedy, one of my favorite documentaries
Yeah,
of all time. And
yeah.
you mentioned a single incident I want to focus on today, which happened maybe 7 months before the assassination. I don't think
Hmm.
too many people are familiar with, we are, more familiar than I am, about the thing that captivated your interest in the General Walker shooting, where
Yeah,
Oswald was posthumously accused back in April '63. You want to shed some light
yeah. I
on that?
mean, sh sure. I mean, like anybody else, I had been interested in the assassination, like other researchers or people just with a genuine interest for, many, many years. And I didn't pay. I was aware of the General Walker shooting incident. I mean, when you read the books and watch the documentaries, they do refer to it, but it's not given a lot of significance. That they focus more on obviously JFK and Officer Tippit.
Right.
And I was like that as well. I was pretty much, yeah, I'm aware of General Walker, but I didn't pay that much attention to that actual case. And my interest was really piqued a number of years ago when the name William Duff came to my attention. And the reason that it got me interested is because he's a fellow Scotsman,
Right.
and his name has been mentioned in the same sentence as General Walker, Jack Ruby, Lee Oswald, and I'm thinking, wow, who's this Scottish guy, that's found his way into the JFK assassination, and he was only born about maybe 20 miles away from where I'm sitting just now. So that
Oh,
that got me interested in him because it was a name that I hadn't really come across before. And therefore, when you start investigating William Duff, that does get you into the General Walker scenario because Duff, he emigrated to America from Scotland in the mid 50s, and he ended up working for General Walker in General Walker's big house on Turtle Creek Boulevard. He worked there for maybe about 3 to 4 months, something like that. We're maybe talking about November 62 to maybe March 63. And then he was let go effectively. And Walker assassination attempt happened about a month later. And Duff was a suspect. The Dallas police were pointed in his direction, and they did interview him. They actually did arrest him, interviewed him, and put him in a jail cell. But then they had nothing to keep him on, so they let him go. So that got me that when you go down that road, I started to get more interested. Well, what's this Walker shooting all about? And just started reading and researching more about it. So that's really how I got into the General Walker thing was through William Duff.
hmm. Right.
Uh, I mean, Duff had he'd spent most of the time when he emigrated on the West Coast. So he was in California for a while, and he joined the U.S. Air Force, and he was let go in I think it was December '59, and it was an undesirable discharge. He had misdemeanors during his service, and he was on a bus traveling down the West Coast, and he met a lady who was from Dallas. Her name was Frances Bernard, and they got on quite well by all accounts because she moved on to Dallas, and then he effectively went out there shortly afterwards, and they got married. Uh, I think it was on the 5th of November, 1962. They got married, but she found out that he was a bit of a I don't know. He had a reputation for not being able to tell the truth. He was telling a lot of stories. I think he told Frances when he met her that he was coming back from a convention of Boeing engineers from in Seattle, and he was waiting on a big paycheck from them. And that was all untrue. So eventually, I think she got wind of what he was like, and she basically got the marriage annulled and kicked off out the house. So he finds himself in Dallas in late 1962, and the story goes that he walks up to General Walker's house, chaps the front door. Actually, Walker comes to the front door, so he speaks to him, and basically is asking for a job. And Walker says, "Yeah, you can come and work for me as a volunteer. I won't be paying you, but I can give you room and board." And that was good enough for Duff at that time. So he finds himself living in the Walker House at Turtle Creek Boulevard and just doing kind of odd jobs for General Walker, driving him around. I think it was Duff that put out the flags, the American flags, on his lawn first thing in the morning and then took them in the last thing at night. So he found himself there. Uh, I sometimes I think to myself, was that a spontaneous act? Just walking up to General Walker's front door, or was there something more to it? I've never quite got to the bottom of that. But yeah, he worked there till about March 1963, and by that time, General Walker was out on a speaking tour, a US speaking tour. It was called Operation Midnight Ride. And it was basically a political speaking tour with Billy James Hargis, who was quite an evangelical preacher. And the two of them were going around America spouting their politics. And it was while Walker was away on that speaking tour that Duff was basically kicked out the house. I think he wasn't getting on that well with the other volunteers. I think some of them thought he was quite lazy. He thought he was getting bossed about, but ultimately they kicked him out. Now Walker wasn't there at the time, as I say. He was out on his speaking tour, so I don't really know if Walker was aware of it until he got back, or he was contacted to say, Duff's gone. But that's what happened. Duff was kicked out in about March '63, and then a couple of days after Walker returns from the Operation Midnight Ride speaking tour, he's sitting in the back room on the ground floor, and he's completing his tax returns, and that's when the bullet flies through the window, just misses Walker by a few inches, and goes through the wall, and the bullet is found in the adjoining room. When Walker realizes it's a gunshot, I think initially he thought it could have been like a firecracker or something.
Right.
But when he realized it actually was a gunshot, he says that he ran upstairs to get his pistol. And as he was coming back downstairs, he had a window that he could look out, and he saw a car coming down the hill and then turning onto Turtle Creek Boulevard. He described that as like good timing for like a getaway car. Uh, but he gets down, Walker goes out the back where the shot came from, and basically, he wasn't able to find anybody or anything. Called the police, and the police arrived. and that's where the investigation got going.
Mhm. Now, did how did the police get to the point of arresting Huff?
Yeah,
What
Duff.
kind of I know they released him, but
Yeah,
then Oswald 7 months later. That's kind of strange, but
yeah. I mean, what happened was that when the police were investigating the Walker shooting and the days following it happening, they were interviewing various people. They didn't actually find any evidence. They didn't find like a cartridge. They didn't find, I think then one of the police reports said there was no evidence of value that was found at the crime scene. They obviously found the bullet, but it was very badly damaged. Uh, and they started just interviewing neighbours, what other Walker volunteers. And basically, in my research, it was two individuals in particular. There was Robert Surrey, who was one of Walker's associates. It was actually Surrey who was responsible for the Wanted for Treason leaflet, the famous Wanted for Treason leaflet that was placed around Dallas a day or two before Kennedy visited. And also Walker's secretary as well. They both were interviewed by the police, and they mentioned to the police that they thought Duff was a person of interest that the police should perhaps
okay.
investigate. So uh, I think it was actually Robert Surrey who packed Duff's suitcase and got him out the house. But they effectively led the police to William Duff. They also mentioned that there was a lady that he had been engaged to, and they asked they felt that the police maybe would like to interview her as well, and they did. And she told them that the engagement had been broken off and that he'd been trying to borrow money off her mother. So the police were quite interested in Duff. Who is this guy? So eventually they did track him down. He was living not that far from Walker at the time. He was only a couple of miles away, living in an apartment, and they basically picked him up. They took him into the police cell, police department, and they fingerprinted him. There's a mugshot of him. It's still the only photograph I've ever been able to find of William Duff. I'm continuing to look, but his mugshot is the only picture I've found. But he was mugshotted, he was questioned, he was fingerprinted, but then he was let go. I mean, effectively, they really didn't have
Mhm.
anything to, basically keep him. So after that, he was let go, and he comes back on the scene again because just get the right date here. I think it was in late May. It was the following month. I think it was the 28th of May. Let's see if I got that right. Yeah, it was the 28th of May. The Walker House received a phone call, and it was from an anonymous. It was an anonymous caller, but it was a female. It was a lady caller, and she asked to speak to General Walker, and Walker wasn't there at the time. So the lady was persuaded to leave a message about why she was calling, and she basically Walker's secretary was listening into the call, and basically this lady was saying that she had uh, been at a meeting or a party or something where William Duff was present, and Duff was bragging about being the person that took the shot at General Walker.
Really?
Now, as I said before, uh, you never really know what to believe with William Duff. Was he just bigging himself up? But th this is what the lady said in the call, that he had been the person who took the shot, and that he was a communist, and he had been selected for the job to stoke interracial tensions. And because he had failed to kill Walker, he was in a lot of trouble with the communists. That's the story that was told on the telephone. Whether it's true or not, who knows?
Right.
But that was the nature of the call. What that basically did was it got Walker back interested in whether Duff could have been the person that took the shot. They took the call seriously enough to investigate it, and Walker hired two private investigators, uh, and they were called Cliff Roberts and Bill Keister. They were from Oklahoma, and they might have been hired via Walker's counsel and friend Clyde Watts, General Clyde Watts. They were quite close. But in any event, they hire these two private investigators to try and find out uh, what Duff, does Duff know any more? Can we find out if he really did take the shot, or what can we do? So these two investigators are put on the case, and they come down from Oklahoma to Dallas, and Cliff Roberts actually rents an apartment next to where Duff was living at the time, and basically tries to befriend him, and actually does befriend him, chats away to him, and I think they have a few drinks together, etc., just trying to gain his trust, really.
Mhm.
And the conversation turns to talking about General Walker. So he's trying to tease out, information about what Duff may or may not know. Uh, what basically happens is that Duff says to Roberts, the investigator, that he would take a shot at Walker. He didn't like Walker, and he would take a shot at him if there was money to be made. So Cliff Roberts says, "Well, I know a guy that's got money." So they basically set up this elaborate. It's almost like a kind of entrapment. Roberts and his partner Keister offered Duff $5,000 to shoot General Walker. Now, obviously, as I say, they're not really seriously going to go through with it. They're trying to try to entice Duff in to see what, is he going to go through with it? Is he going to tell us a bit more about maybe what happened on April 10? So they get to the point where the three of them are driving around Walker's house in the vicinity, and they're planning it. They're planning another assassination attempt on General Walker, and it was due to take place on the 10th of June, 63. Uh, Eventually, what happens is once they get to that point where Duff says, "I'll take the $5,000, I'll take the shot at Walker," etc. Once it gets to that point, Roberts and Keister say, "Right, now we've got to report this." So they tell General Walker what has been going on, how far they've got, and Walker recommends that they tell the police, the Dallas police. So the two investigators go to the Dallas police and they tell them, what they've been doing, and that this guy Duff is potentially, could potentially be the shooter. Uh, but unbeknown to them, Duff had actually he got wind. He probably thought that this doesn't smell right. You know what these guys are doing. So I think he probably felt that he was being set up. So before the investigators went to the Dallas police, Duff had actually went to the FBI. I think he may have even spoken to James Hosty, whose name, is
Hmm.
is
Right.
notorious in the Kennedy circles. And he basically said to Hosty, "Look, I think I'm being set up." So Duff, in a way, got his retaliation in first. But on the back of it all, the police brought him back in again. They brought Duff back in June, and he went through a lie detector test. Uh, so, he's been arrested before in April, and now a couple of months later, he's back in custody, and he's taken a lie detector test. And I think there was 6 questions that he was asked. Uh, did you take a shot at General Walker? Where were you the night that Walker, was there was the assassination attempt? There was a bunch of questions, and he basically passed the lie detector test.
Okay.
And the police basically thought, we don't think this guy's involved. We just don't believe he's involved in it. So again, he was let go after that. Uh, and that may have been the end of the William Duff story, because he he could have just disappeared off the radar. But then after the Kennedy assassination in November, uh, I think early December, there was a restaurant owner who owned a restaurant in Dallas, who knew William Duff, and he knew him as Scotty. That was how he referred to him. And he told the FBI that about 7 months before the Kennedy, or before December, he saw Scotty, inverted commas, with who he believed to be Lee Harvey Oswald in his restaurant. Uh,
Hmm.
Now, it could have been mistaken identity, but I think Loria said something like he would bet money it was Oswald. I mean, Oswald's face by that time was probably one of the most famous faces in the world at that time. But Loria was, he felt that it was credible enough to contact the authorities and say, I saw William Duff with uh, who I think is Lee Harvey Oswald in his restaurant. And if we take that time scale that Loria, the restaurant owner, says, that does take it back to around April 63. If it's 7 months before, takes it round about the period when the Walker shooting actually took place.
Hmm.
So, whether there's anything to that or not, who knows? But it got the FBI and the Secret Service and others trying to locate Duff again because suddenly now they've got another lead. They've got another lead on him that he may have been seen with, or at least one witness was saying that they saw him in the company of uh, Lee Harvey Oswald. So they tried to track him down, and they had some difficulty by all accounts tracking him down, but eventually they did. And he joined the army by that time, and he was interviewed in January 64 at Fort Sill in Oklahoma. They found him there and they interviewed him, and basically he denied everything. He says, "No, never hang out with Lee Harvey Oswald, didn't take the shot at Walker, you know, didn't know Jack Ruby, etc., etc." He basically just really denied
I,
any any involvement in anything. Uh, but then a few months later, uh, he he feels like he's being followed by Cliff Roberts. This is the detective who was one of the detectives that Walker had hired. He thought he was being followed by him, so he got in touch again with a special agent, the Secret Service, and we're talking now about May, around about April, May 64, and he basically starts to tell this agent about a different story. And really, the story not about knowing Lee Harvey Oswald, but about seeing Jack Ruby visiting General Walker's house while Duff worked for Walker. So, say Duff worked there for about 3 or 4 months. So he was telling the Secret Service agent that Jack Ruby visited the Walker house at least once a month, I think, during that period. Now, that's quite significant because I don't know that there's ever been a link really between Jack Ruby and General Walker. But according to Duff, he saw Ruby there with another man. He wasn't privy to any of the conversations that they had because they went into another room and he wasn't a part of the discussion. But he basically did say that Jack Ruby had been visiting the Walker house. Uh, Again, it's one of these things, Randy, where the police or the FBI or the Secret Service, that they're looking for corroboration or they're looking for evidence, and Duff's not really got any to give them. They have to kind of take him at his word, and he's somebody who wasn't particularly trustworthy. So how much emphasis can they put on it? And eventually, a bit like they did with the Walker shooting, they kind of give up on it. They kind of say that, well, thanks for the information, but I think they thought he was maybe given the information for ulterior motives or whatever. In fact, Walker's legal counsel, Clyde Watts, he had provided Duff with uh, living quarters and a job, which seemed a bit odd given that they suspected that Duff had taken the shot at Walker. But maybe they were just trying to keep him close. Maybe they were just trying to find out if they could glean any more information from him. But after these allegations of Ruby visiting the Walker house, it kind of petered out after that, and Duff just went off the scene. He kind of disappeared off the scene. Uh, I was able to track down. He died in 1992. I wish I had known more about it before he died. I could have tried. I'd love to have. I'd love to have had a conversation with him.
Would have been a great interview, huh?
I would have loved it. In fact, when the bit earlier on, when him and the two detectives were driving around the Walker vicinity, plotting this assassination attempt that basically was an entrapment, the the conversation was recorded. So the investigators recorded the conversation and handed it to the Dallas police. And I mean, I've inquired about whether the tape still exists because it would be really interesting to actually hear his voice, hear him talking to the guys in the car. But so far, I've drawn a blank when it comes to trying to find the tape. But there is a transcript of it that I've got, so I've had a read at that. But it's not quite the same reading a transcript as it is, hearing the actual recording. A lot of the transcript, I think they probably can't really hear exactly what's being said. There's maybe a lot of noise in the background,
Right.
so you're not really getting a lot of information out of it. But yeah, he died in 1992. Uh, and I was actually on American holiday last year. I was in Las Vegas, and that's where Duff died. He died in Clark County in Nevada. And while I was out there, I was able to find the place where his remains are.
Hmm.
So he was cremated, and he's in like a communal kind of plot, if you like, in a kind of cemetery about 5 or 6 miles north of the Vegas Strip, and that's where he is. That's where his remains are as we speak.
Hmm.
Uh, so I'm sure there's more to find out about this guy. I'm
Right.
sure there's a lot more to find out.
Interesting.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I was directed some years ago to like a forum online, and one of the comments on the forum was from somebody who was claiming to be William Duff's daughter, and that was quite interesting because, and actually, I think he did have a daughter, uh, and she I said in the post, this was in 2010, so it's quite some time ago, that she just found out that her father had been hired by General Walker, and that her father was the person that tried to kill him. So I don't know who she found it out from, or whether she just researched it the same way I have. And she also claimed that her father knew Jack Ruby and Lee Oswald, etc. So that was quite interesting. And then there was
Right.
a comment on the post from 2013 claiming to be somebody who was the lady's name was Alice Frazier, who was claiming to be Duff's daughter. And there was a guy came on said that he was Alice Frazier's son and that his mother had died 5 months earlier. And again, he was looking for information on that would make him his grandfather, about that he'd worked for the CIA, but he'd been unable to locate him. And I tried to correspond with the chap. I emailed him back, but the email address it kind of bounced back, so I wasn't able to carry on the conversation. Remember, it was several years after the forum had the posts that were on the forum, so he may have changed his email address.
Right.
Who knows? Who knows if the posts were genuine? I've got no idea. But it was certainly very interesting that somebody claiming to be his daughter and his grandson were saying that he worked for the CIA
Hmm.
and he was hired by Walker and he knew Jack Ruby, uh, Lee Oswald, etc.
Right. Now, well, when you find out, we'll bring you back on the program and we'll talk about that. How did we only have about 5 minutes left, believe it or not.
Yeah,
It's flown. So after all this, 7 months later, Oswald gets arrested for Kennedy, and then he is linked to Walker. the Walker
Mm.
shooting. How did that come about? If you briefly, if you can.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Oswald wasn't a suspect from April '63 to right through to after the Kennedy assassination. I think the first kind of comment really was in a reporter, a Dallas reporter. It's on YouTube, but he asked Chief Curry a question: does the assassination have anything to do with the firing at General Walker? And Curry doesn't know at that point. So at that time, I don't think Oswald's really in the frame. But then on the 29th of November, '63, a West German uh, newspaper or publication
Right.
publishes an article called The Strange Case of Oswald, I think it was called. And in that article, they allege that Oswald was the person that took the shot at General Walker. Uh, and they actually even go further than that and say that Oswald was arrested that night and then he was released by under orders of a higher authority. I think the insinuation, I think perhaps being that it was Robert Kennedy as Attorney General. I mean, I don't know where they got all that from, but certainly the journalists from that paper had interviewed Walker the day after the assassination. So Walker denies it, but it's highly likely that they got the Oswald connection through General Walker. So this is just a German newspaper article. I mean, who's really paying any attention to it, really? But the following day, the 30th of November, Ruth Payne, who most of us will be aware of, she she goes to the Irving Police Department and hands in some of Marina Oswald's personal possessions. She's been sequestered at that time, so Ruth can't really get to see her, but she passes some information. There's two books as part of the possessions, and inside one of the books, eventually the police are looking through. Inside one of the books, they find the famous note.
Right.
The kind of the note with all the different points about if I'm arrested, if I'm killed, here's some money, here's the key to the post office box, all of that,
But you don't think
which
he wrote
is
it, do you? Or
well, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, there were fingerprints. The FBI fingerprints expert did an analysis on it and found 7 latent fingerprints on the note, but none of them were Oswald's or even Marina's. Now, whether the fingerprints could still exist after 7 months or not, I don't know. But certainly, they weren't able to link that. So there was just an assumption. I mean, really, Marina was the one that really linked Oswald to the note. She said that she found the note on the night that the shooting incident happened there with Walker. So basically, it was Marina who
right.
who eventually, linked Oswald to the note, and then that got the ball rolling big time when it came to Oswald being linked to the Walker shooting because they
Right.
then
I do
find
remember that.
photographs. They then try to retrieve the bullet and they try and kind of link that to the Marlica Carcano. On the night of the shooting, the bullet was described by the Dallas police as a steel jacketed bullet.
Hmm.
But the bullet that's in evidence at the moment is a clear 6.5 millimeter copper jacketed bullet. So the Dallas police either handled a different bullet or, got it really badly
Right.
wrong when
Exactly.
they were trying to identify the bullet.
And I'm sorry to cut you off, and that's
Yeah,
very
is
interesting.
that
I appreciate it. That's all the time we have. I
okay?
know the Dallas police didn't. There's some discrepancies there. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Scott. I
no
appreciate it.
problem,
Maybe
Randy.
we
If you
can
need me
talk.
back on, just
We'll
let
talk
me know.
later.
Yep, okay.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank
Cheers.
you.